Hello friends, welcome to my channel at Simple Made Pretty. If you are new here, I share budget home decor ideas, crinkly crafts, and Dollar Tree DIYs. In today's video, I am sharing simple Christmas cookies that you can make this year. I'm wearing my Christmas apron. First, just a quick disclaimer here. These recipes are not my own. They actually came from my grandmother. This is her, guys. Yes, she had her own recipe book that she made for all of her grandchildren, as well as some other close friends and family. These recipes have been in my family for over 80 years, and one of my favorite memories as a child growing up with a big family. I am a sibling with 4 brothers and 1 sister, so I had a family of 6 kids. And my grandmother would always visit us for Christmas, and she would bring a trunk full of goodies for us. She loved baking, and coming from the Pennsylvania Dutch area, near where the Amish community lives, a lot of these recipes came from that heritage. These recipes are definitely old-fashioned. They feature regular granulated sugar as well as flour. So if you are looking for something that's gluten-free or sugar-free, these probably will not work for you. However, these recipes are tried and true. One of the recipes I will be featuring is Chewy chocolate chip cookie recipe, which is pretty famous because every time I make it, if somebody is trying it for the first time, they are just like, wow, I've never had a chocolate chip cookie this good in my life. And some people don't even like chocolate chip cookies and they will gobble these things up. And I will tell you all my tips and tricks so that you can make the best chocolate chip cookies. Grandmother would probably quadruple her chocolate chip recipe during the holidays. And she would fill up those huge popcorn tin. Parents would literally have to hide them from the kids because we would just eat them all up in 24 hours. Just wanted to share a few images in my grandmother's recipe book. That's my dad and my uncle. And this is actually the table where I sat when I was younger and had all of our family meals. These are all the canned goods that she would make. And here's a picture of her baking donuts on an old-fashioned stove in the 1940s. I'm so thankful that my brother actually helped her make this in the late 90s, and each of us got one of these books, and I actually did make a digital copy in case I lost mine. I have shared the chocolate chip recipe as well as another cookie recipe on my blog, but this is the first time I'm sharing a few more of her recipes for you. I hope that she is just looking down on me from heaven and just is so proud and happy that I am sharing these recipes with you guys and that you can actually carry on her recipes in your homes too. So since my daughter was a little girl, I introduced her to baking, and she is quite the baker herself. I guess it runs in the family. And her and I have always baked cookies together during the holidays. We both have our Christmas aprons on. And my son is also, he loves to be involved in this tradition as well. So we typically tend to make cookies 3 to 5 days before Christmas. And a lot of the cookies we pass around during our Christmas meal, and we'll just pass all the cookies around at the table for everyone to enjoy as the dessert. Okay, so let's get started, and don't forget to check the description with some of the baking essentials that I recommend that you have to make the most out of your Christmas and holiday baking. So the first recipe on my list is Chewy chocolate chip cookies. The secret ingredient to these cookies is vanilla instant pudding. And you put it right into the chocolate chip cookie mix. You don't make the pudding ahead of time. You just dump the mix in there. I would also say that the type of butter that you use will result in a different cookie afterwards as well. And also it makes a difference if your butter is a room temperature or it's still a little bit solid. Now, I've had the best results with my cookies when the butter is not room temperature, but it's still a little bit cold. So keep that in mind. I probably also achieve the best cookies because of the baking sheets that I use, as well as the silicone baking mats And I have a special cookie scoop that I use as well. I will link everything in the description for you. And I highly recommend, if anything, if you don't get any of these items, at least get the cookie ball scoop because I use it so much in all of my baking for cookies. I'm not going to go through the ingredients. I'm just going to show a screenshot for you. However, I will go through the instructions. You'll need to preheat your oven to 350. Line your baking sheet with parchment paper or use a silicone baking mat. I highly recommend the baking mats, especially the ones that have the little circles to indicate where to place your cookies. Then you're going to cream together the butter, sugars, vanilla, and the package of pudding until it's light and fluffy. And then you're going to beat in the eggs one at a time. And then in another bowl, you'll whisk together the flour and the baking soda. You could skip the whisking and just add it straight to the wet mix. And then you're going to stir in the chocolate chips. And you're going to use your cookie ball scooper to drop rounded tablespoons of the dough onto the baking sheet. And then what I like to do for an extra aesthetic touch is add 3 chocolate chip cookies to the tops of the balls. That way, when they're done cooking, you have this perfect little chocolate chip cookie. I bake them for 8 to 12 minutes. Now, the reason why I say 8 minutes is because everybody's oven is different. My grandmother's recipe said 8 to 10 minutes, while I sometimes end up baking it for at least 12 minutes. So if I were you, I would just keep an eye on it. Now, what I like to do is take them out at the 8-minute mark and they're not cooked all the way. They look a little doughy if you touch them and they're just like, that's raw. I put them back in the oven, but I switch places with my cookie sheets. They are done. I set them out on my countertop and I let them sit on the pans for at least 1 to 2 minutes so that they have time to cool and time to cook a little bit longer. I transfer them from the pans using a flipper onto a cookie rack. At that point, my kids are smelling the cookies and looking at them and they're asking for a quality control sample. So I usually plate a warm chocolate chip cookie for them so I can get the quality control thumbs up. A few more tips about these chocolate chip cookies is you can freeze this cookie dough. I baked a dozen cookies that day and the rest of it I put in a Ziploc bag, press all the air out, and then freeze them for up to 6 months. Now, when you're ready to bake them, all you have to do is take the bag out of the freezer, thaw it out on your countertop until it's soft. Then you can put the dough in a bowl and then just repeat the steps of scooping it onto your cookie sheets and baking it as directed. Don't forget to visit simplemadepretty.com where I have this recipe posted and you can print it as well. My next recipe that we bake every holiday season is a basic sugar cookie recipe. This is one of my kids' favorite thing to do every Christmas. They look forward to it. I'm sharing the screenshot of the ingredients, but you can also find the full recipe that you can print at Simple Made Pretty, linked in the description of my video. You will need a rolling pin for this recipe. So you are going to start by beating the margarine, the sugar, and the vanilla in a large bowl at a medium speed until it's light and fluffy. Then you're going to beat in the eggs. You'll beat the dry ingredients into the butter mixture at a low speed. Take the dough and wrap it in plastic wrap and refrigerate it for up to 1 hour. When you are ready to make your cookies, you're going to take the dough out of the refrigerator. You might want to let it soften a little bit, but you're going to work with 1/4 of the dough at the time. So rolling out cookie dough, you just want to make sure that you have a clean surface. You can usually use your countertops if you have a nice stone countertop and put flour down, and then you can roll it out on the surface. If you don't have that or you don't feel comfortable rolling it out on your countertops, you could put down some parchment paper or you could even use your silicone baking mat. Just make sure you put flour on it and flour on your rolling pin and then roll it out until it's at least a 1/8 of an inch thick. Now, I would recommend that it's a little bit thicker than that. That was my grandmother's recipe. The reason why is because the thinner you roll your dough and your cookies are, the harder they're going to be. So if you're the type of person that you like crunchy cookies, roll it thin. If you like soft, thick cookies, then I would try to roll them at least a 1/2 inch in thickness. What I do is I give each of my kids their own little cookie dough. After I've rolled out like enough that they can make several cookies from, they each get their own dough that they can use cookie cutters to cut out the shapes. And then I give them each their own pan that they can put their finished cookies that they've cut out onto the baking pan. And then I put them in the oven to bake for 5 to 13 minutes. Again, this is a big window of baking because everyone's oven is different. So I would recommend that you check on the cookies periodically and see if they are done to your likeness. There are several ways you can make basic sugar cookies. You don't have to use cookie cutters. It is the fun thing to do for kids, or if you are crafty and you like decorating, you could also just make simple circle cookies. You could use a cookie stamp. So many different ways you can use this basic sugar cookie recipe and be creative with it. My kids like to decorate their cookies during the holidays with different colored icings. So what I do is I make a big bowl of plain white icing, and the ingredients for that is 1 cup of powdered sugar and 1 to 2 teaspoons of milk. And I make 1 big container of the white icing. Then I take little ramekin dishes and I divide the icing up. And then in each ramekin dish, I will add a different food coloring to it and then stir that in to make multiple different colors of food coloring that they can use to decorate their cookies. Now you can put the icing in little Ziploc baggies and cut a hole in the corner to ice them with the bag, or you can just give your kids a spoon. That is a little teaspoon is probably the easiest way that I have let them decorate, where they can just scoop it out and decorate their cookies how they want. Or you can grab little tubes of icing from any grocery store. I've even seen them at Dollar Tree, and those will come in handy as well. Basic sugar cookie recipe also freezes well, so you could just divide a ball of it up and wrap it in plastic wrap and stick it in your freezer for up to 6 months, and then again let it thaw out on your countertop before using it. One of our next favorite recipes for Christmas cookies during the holiday is a recipe for cherry winks. Now, my daughter loves these. Of course, I love them too. One of the key ingredients in this recipe is cornflakes and maraschino cherries. Now, this recipe originally included Crisco. I do not use Crisco. I substitute coconut oil for anything that calls for Crisco. After you have combined all the ingredients to make your cookie dough, roll your cookie dough balls in the cornflakes mixture. Then you place it on your baking mat. You top each cookie with half of a cherry. And then you'll bake it in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes at 375. And they are just one of those cookies you don't expect to taste so good. My next Christmas cookie recipe is magic cookie bars. This was definitely a favorite of mine as a kid. It's very sweet. It reminds me of fudge. The recipe does yield a lot. So if you do have a lot of people that you are making gifts for, or you're baking sweets for, this recipe can go a long way because it is so sweet. You only need a little bite. So all you need is a casserole dish. You're going to layer, like you're making a lasagna, you're layering all the ingredients. You're going to pour melted butter into the bottom of the pan first. Then you're going to sprinkle the graham cracker crumbs all over the butter. Then you're going to sprinkle the chopped nuts over that, and then scatter all of the different chips on top of that. You've got butterscotch chips, you've got chocolate chips, and then on top of the chocolate chips, you'll sprinkle the coconut, and then you will pour the sweetened condensed milk over top of the entire thing. And then you just bake it in the oven for 25 minutes and then cool it in the pan for about 15 minutes. and then you can cut it into bars. This is such an easy recipe because you literally just dump it in your pan and put it in the oven. My last Christmas cookie recipe in this video is peanut blossoms. Now, I know this is a Christmas favorite for a lot of people. After you've combined all the ingredients to make your cookie dough, again, you can use that cookie dough scooper to scoop these into balls. Then you put in the oven and bake for 8 to 10 minutes at 375. You remove the cookies from the oven and you place a little Hershey Kiss on top in the center and then put them back in the oven for another 2 minutes. Dollar Tree sells the Hershey Kiss bags, the little individual size ones, and I believe that I've used 2 of those in order to make this recipe because the price of Hershey Kisses has gone up so much. If you buy a big bag during the holidays, you don't really need a huge bag. You can just get away with those little bags from Dollar Tree for $1.25. This is also another recipe that you could freeze the dough. So if you do have guests that are coming to visit you after the holidays, or you just want to keep a variety of sweets in your freezer that you can pull out in a moment's notice. Whenever my kids have friends come over, they're like, "Hey mom, can we make cookies?" And I'm like, "Sure," because I know I have a batch that's frozen in my freezer. And so yeah, I am that mom that bakes chocolate chip cookies when the friends come over. Well, I hope these 5 simple and festive Christmas treats bring a smile to your face this season and that you get to try at least 1 or 2 of them. Don't forget to head over to simplemadepretty.com where I've got a full blog post with printable recipe cards, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. By the way, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I don't usually share recipes, but it is the holidays and I know that we have used these recipes every single year and that others would enjoy them too. And I hope you do. Happy baking and may your holiday season be merry and bright. That's it for now. Bye.